Etapu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Harun Nefer. This is Kasak Ma Keperu with another exciting video for you. In this video, we're going to talk about Gal Gadot has been cast as Cleopatra. But before I get into that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. Also, we have free ebooks to expand more on my spiritual teachings. You can scroll down, click on the links below, and download those ebooks and start reading today. If you want to follow that down the rabbit hole some more, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. You can cancel anytime, there's no obligation, and you'll get exclusive access to instructional videos on how to meditate, how to invoke spirits, how to do divination. You get your oracle readings for free. We also have hypnosis videos, so you can put yourself into a state of trance to get rid of any bad habits or negative conditionings, or help you to attract wealth and a mate. A lot of great stuff there, so become a Patreon supporter. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get this revolution started. All right, so let's get into this video. It's like, oh, Hollywood, 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 Hollywood. I've said this before in many of my videos, and if you are not a subscriber on my other channel, which deals with the whole film industry and everything, there's a link below. Click on that link and subscribe to my other channel to get more information and more videos like this on what's going on in Hollywood. So Gal Gadot, if you don't know who she is, shame on you. She's Wonder Woman, and they have the new Wonder Woman film coming out called Wonder Woman 1984. Whenever they can get it out, they're looking to probably do it next year or do it as a streaming service. And to be honest with you, when Gal Gadot was originally cast, she's Israeli. Many people had doubts that she can follow in the footsteps of Linda Carter. But she came along and blew it out the park. She is just awesome as Wonder Woman. Definitely a good follow-up to Linda Carter as Wonder Woman from back in I think it was the 80s or the 70s. I didn't watch the original TV show that much. I think Kathy Lee Crosby, too, actually played the original Wonder Woman in a made-for-TV movie with Ricardo Montalban. I liked that one with Kathy Lee Crosby. It was very limited in terms of the budgets. They couldn't do a lot of the cool effects, and it was more of a crime investigation type of thing. But anyway, I digress. So now this has been going around Hollywood for a while. They wanted to do another Cleopatra movie. They originally did one of the biggest ones with Elizabeth Taylor, as you see in back of me, pale white Elizabeth Taylor as Cleopatra. So they had Angelina Jolie attached to the project, which I don't think is that bad, actually. You know, but the controversy comes up again as to Cleopatra's racial identity. Now, Gal Gadot is Israeli. Cleopatra was not Israeli. So, oh, Hollywood, you're back to your old games again. Now, I've said this before, as I was alluding to earlier, about Hollywood and their whole diversity initiative, which is basically a blanket lie. Hollywood is not interested in diversity. They put that out there because what they're really more interested in pushing is the LGBTQ agenda, the alphabet agenda. And they can't just do it overtly because that would cause a stir in America. So they do it under the guise of diversity. So you'll notice that in these films, they say that we're now diverse. You'll see them pushing more gay, lesbian characters. Now, this is not to say I'm judgmental or criticizing anyone's lifestyle. I'm not. But what I am criticizing Hollywood for is lying. And there's subterfuge. You know, they need to come out and saying, listen, we're just supporting the LGBTQ agenda. We're not interested in furthering the minority agenda in this country. Because this, you know, if you look at the more recent movies they've done, like Star Trek Discovery, now they've got a non-binary character, and they are just promoting that like up the wazoo, you know. And it's just, and then they have the doctor who's a gay character, and they talk so much about that. So this is not diversity. This is not what ADOS or Foundational Black Americans are fighting for in this country. And you'll notice that this country has a long history of having white actors play minority characters. Like, for example, Native Americans, white actors would play them, and it would look so ridiculous you can tell they were white. Asian actors or Asian characters, white actors would play them. You know, Fu Manchu and all of those. Black characters, it's famous that white actors would wear blackface to play those characters. D.W. Griffith's A Birth of a Nation, for example. Hollywood has not stopped in what it's doing in terms of its racism. Hollywood is connected to the ruling elite, the cabal, and they are the propaganda machine for the cabal to push globally, because Hollywood's reach is global, white supremacy, the elevation of white male supremacy. So now some people will say, well, you know, in Star Trek, they have a black female there. And in 007, they have a black female. But what they're doing is they're purposely using those women to emasculate the black men. And Hollywood is creating this whole gender war to attack white men, to emasculate white men, to attack black men, emasculate black men, to elevate white females. And again, create this gender war. This is what the whole Me Too movement about. So going back to what I was saying before, when Hollywood professes to be about diversity, that's just a smokescreen that still lies to Trojan horse. Their real agenda is more clandestine. And you can talk about population control. You can talk about the toxic masculinity, where they want to emasculate males to make them more feminine. And when you do that to a nation, it's ripe for takeover. It's ripe for a fall. And they use women, whether it be white women, black women, as the proxy to go about their evil scheme. So what we see here is Hollywood just continuing on with its same old propaganda and lies, when they've already promised that they're now going to be more inclusive and include, you know, be more diverse. Here we're casting Gal Gadot, fine actress. She's Israeli, and the ethnicity of Cleopatra was Ptolemy and Macedonia and African. This is a subject that Hollywood refuses to acknowledge, and the scientific evidence is pointing to the fact that Cleopatra was of African heritage, ancient Egyptian heritage. Now, they play little games, and I'm going to show you the games that they play, but let's go to the article announcing this about Gal Gadot being cast as Cleopatra. And here we have from the LA Times, Gal Gadot has been tapped to play Cleopatra, and fan reaction is split. And of course it would be split, because people are just absolutely tired of the whitewashing. It's so ridiculous with Hollywood. It needs to stop. And they promised to turn over a new leaf, but of course Hollywood lies. Gal Gadot casting as Cleopatra in an upcoming Paramount film has launched a debate about the Egyptian ruler's ancestry and whether the actress is right for the role. The film, which will be directed by Patty Jenkins, from a script by Leota, whatever her name is, was, no disrespect, sorry, can't pronounce that name, last name, was Gadot's idea, and being billed as an epic biographical drama. The news was first revealed by Deadline. Gadot, best known for playing Wonder Woman in 2 Jenkins projects, including the upcoming Wonder Woman 1984, is of Israeli descent. She is far from the first white woman to play the role. Claudette Colbert, Vivian Leigh, and Elizabeth Taylor have all portrayed the historical figure in the past. I love embarking on new journeys. I love the excitement of new projects, the thrill of bringing new stories to life. Cleopatra is a story I wanted to tell for a very long time. Can't be more grateful about this A-team. And then we go on to see some more tweets and stuff. It says, Cleopatra was a descendant of Ptolemy and the Macedonian Greek who established himself as king. Ptolemy the First did, as Egypt after the death of his companion Alexander the Great. However, because of her mother's identity is unknown, and we're going to address her mother's identity, Cleopatra's ethnicity remains a mystery. It's not a mystery. Fan reaction was mostly skeptical, with many wondering whether Cleopatra should have been played by an actress of color. And then we have Morgan, our Jerkins here. I'm sure Gal Gadot is going to do a wonderful job as Cleopatra. However, for me personally, I would love a Cleopatra who's darker than a brown paper bag, because that seems a bit more historically accurate. And that is true. That is true. A Cleopatra movie could be a huge step forward for big nose representation, but Hollywood just won't allow it. So going on. So that is the I guess press release announcement about this. And you know, every time Hollywood makes a movie about ancient Egyptians, they always go out of their way to cast really lily white actors. And Sigourney Weaver is one of my favorite actresses, was cast in a film about ancient Egypt, The Story of Moses. And, you know, Sigourney Weaver is from Manhattan, New York. And, you know, I mean, no way in the world that she's Egyptian. But Hollywood does not care, because their agenda is clear, which is to further the image of white supremacy. In lieu of being historically accurate. Now, what I want to tackle here is the truth about Cleopatra, because that's what we need to get into. And Cleopatra did in no way look like lily white Elizabeth Taylor, and that's not any say on her acting ability. I'm not casting any aspersions on her, because she's a fine actress, but she's not right for a role. But you know, you have the actual idea of beauty. The standard of beauty always has to be a white female, lily white female. So Elizabeth Taylor represents that, even if she's not right for the role and it's not historically accurate for her to play that role. They don't care, because they have to proselytize or get out the propaganda about what the standard of beauty is on a global level. So I want to take a look at another article here, which kind of hints at the truth, but also does a great deal of lying. So we can see that. Here we go. This is from a blog here, and let's take a look at this. And let's read along, and what you'll see is a mixture of truth and a mixture of overt lies. And the reason why I picked this article, because they kind of give themselves away. Cleopatra's true racial background, and does it really matter? Here we go, by Dwayne Roller. Racial profiling and manipulation has been around for a very long time. It has become an issue in contemporary politics. And over 2,500 years ago, the Greek historian Herodotus, now you should know Herodotus, who met the ancient Egyptians, said they were black. Herodotus is he's an historian who said that the ancient Egyptians were black. I'm going to emphasize that. The Greek historian Herodotus wrote that the ethnicity was regularly turned into political ends. All right. So Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, and a woman of great ability. And we're going to question this, because we've romanticized Cleopatra, but really she was a killer. She was politically savvy, she was cutthroat, and she was a killer. And that's something that they don't want to tackle. All right. A woman of great ability is ultimately a victim of racial profiling, as today people can be more interested in her racial background than her many accomplishments. Her racial background is important, despite what this article is saying. Such concerns have recently come to the forefront with the announcement that in the last one of the several Cleopatra movies currently planned, a white instead of black actress would play the role of the queen. It is hard to imagine that race would be more important than acting ability, but clearly others disagree. I'm sure there are many black actresses that are ripe for the role, and this article, this last sentence is really ridiculously stupid in what they're saying. Trying to say that acting ability is more important. Yeah, it is more important, but Hollywood doesn't pay attention to that. They cast a majority of white actors in roles, even where they don't fit, and leave actors of color out in the cold. It has been suggested, although generally not by credible scholarly sources. Now look what it does. It says it has been suggested, although by not credible scholarly sources. Well, who says they're not credible? That Cleopatra was racially black African. To be blunt, there's absolutely no evidence for this. And yes, there is. There is evidence for this. But yet they've got to make you believe that there's no evidence. So their propaganda in their article is evident. You can just see what their agenda is, right? So to be blunt, there's absolutely no evidence for this, yet it is one of those issues that seem to take on a life of its own despite all indication to the contrary. Bull. What follows, and I'm going to tell you, they give themselves away, they trap themselves, and I'm going to show you how they do it. What follows lays out the evidence for Cleopatra's racial ancestry. Yes, that's right. And these people and the writer, what's his name again? Dwayne Roller is too stupid to realize the mistake he made. Let's get deeper into this. Cleopatra's racial ancestry, but one must not forget that this is of little importance in accessing the legacy of the queen in world history. He continues to say, oh, the racial ancestry doesn't matter because he's setting himself up because he knows that he's lying. He knows that she is of African descent. He knows that, but he has to keep with this propaganda. Let us consider exactly the evidence of Cleopatra's racial background. It is a little complicated, so do follow closely. She was born in early 69 BC as a descendant of the line of Egyptian kings in a dynasty that went back 250 years. There we go, Egyptian kings. Her ancestry, Ptolemy I, a companion of Alexander the Great, found the dynasty in the late 4th century BC. Ptolemy and the Macedonian Greek in origin was Macedonian Greek in origin. He grew up at the royal court of Alexander's father in Macedonia, the northern part of the Greek peninsula, and established themselves as the king of Egypt. In the convulsive years after Alexander's death, the descendant passed through 6 successors, Ptolemies, until it reached Cleopatra's father. So Cleopatra was no more than 8 generations away from being pure Macedonian Greek. But what about the mother? Remember we had talked about the mother we didn't know the mother's racial heritage? Well, here we're getting into it now. Women are always difficult to find, even in royal dynasties, and it is here the questions of her racial background have been raised. For the first 6 generations, the wives of the ruling Ptolemies also came from the same Macedonian background as their husbands. So until the time of Cleopatra's great-grandfather, the ethnic makeup of the dynasty was still pure Macedonian Greek. In fact, 2 of her ancestors married their sisters, thus reinforcing the Macedonian ethnicity. And this intermarrying of family comes out of Egypt, this tradition. It was Cleopatra's grandfather that uncertainties developed. Although he had 2 wives of traditional Macedonian background, he seems to have had at least 1 concubine of uncertain origin who may have been Cleopatra's grandmother, but this is by no means clear, and some sources indicate she was her husband's sister and thus pure Macedonian. Assuming, however, that Cleopatra's grandmother was not from a traditional Macedonian Greek stem, the question arises as to just what she was. Sources suggest that if she was not Macedonian, she was probably Egyptian. She was probably Egyptian. So by the time of Cleopatra's grandparents, there have been an Egyptian element in the racial stem. Who are the ancient Egyptians? The Greek historian Herodotus tells us they were Black Africans. So he makes a critical error here by citing Herodotus, and that's his first error, and then citing the fact that her family line has Egyptian heritage. But he's not a scholar, he doesn't know anything, so he makes these mistakes would give away his lies. Cleopatra's father also had several wives. One was his sister, but again, there is evidence that some of his 5 children had another mother. Yet the geographer Strabo, one of the few contemporary sources for the life of Cleopatra, wrote that all the wives of her father were women of significant status, which rules out any slaves or concubines and makes it possible that Cleopatra's mother was of traditional Macedonian Greek stock. But this may not have been the case. This may not have been the case. So one may need to look elsewhere for the ethnic background of Cleopatra's mother. Yet there is only one other ethnic group that produced women of status in contemporary Egypt, the Egyptian religious elite. There we go. Which in fact had a long history of intermarriage with the Ptolemaic dynasty. So Cleopatra's mother may have been Egyptian, hence black, African, but she probably also has some Macedonian background. He's given himself away, he doesn't even realize it. There are three other matters worthy of consideration. One is that Cleopatra was the only ruler of her dynasty who knew, in addition to her native Greek, the Egyptian language. This suggests close association with an Egyptian speaker, perhaps her mother. Secondly, Cleopatra's daughter, who became queen of Matarina and was mixed ethnicity herself, as her father was Roman, honored the Egyptian religious elite as her far-off capital of Matronian Caesarion in modern Algeria. This makes sense if they were part of the ancestral family. And third, especially relevant in demolishing any suggestion that Cleopatra had black African blood. So, okay, so here we go. He's admitting, fully admitting that she has Egyptian heritage, which we know, again, Herodotus said Egyptians were black, but then he says, no, this demolishes the fact that Cleopatra had black African blood. He's stupid. The representation of her Greek and Roman art and coins do not show anything other than traditional Macedonian ethnicity. We don't know if those are debatable. Any images that you see from antiquity sometimes are not accurate and correct, although artists were perfectly capable of showing other ethnic groups. To sum it up, it's quite possible that Cleopatra was pure Macedonian Greek, but it's probable that she had some Egyptian blood. So he admits she's Egyptian. And he didn't even know his history. He didn't even read Herodotus' book, The Histories, in which he reveals that the Egyptians were black. Although that amount is uncertain, certainly it was no more than half and probably less. Let me read that again. To sum it up, it is quite possible that Cleopatra was pure Macedonian Greek, but it is probable that she had some Egyptian blood, although the amount is uncertain. Certainly it was more than half. He's admitting she had more than half Egyptian blood, and probably less. The best evidence is that she was 3/4 Macedonian, Greek, and 1/4 Egyptian. There's no room for anything else, certainly not for any black African blood. Look at the disdain. Look how he just hates that whole idea that she could be black. Now, I want to further hit home the point of her ethnicity by turning to a program that was done by the BBC called Cleopatra, Portrait of a Killer. All right. And in this BBC documentary, they find Arsinoe. Arsinoe is Cleopatra's sister. They reconstruct her skull, Arsinoe's skull, Princess Arsinoe, I should say. And they come to some very startling conclusions. So let's go to the video so you can see for yourself. First, they're going to talk about the discovery of the tomb and the skull, which was transferred to Germany and then lost. But I think his name is Hill Qatar in the 1920s, took the measurements. And based on the measurements, they're doing a virtual reality reconstruction of the skull of Princess Arsinoe. So let's take a look at this.
The chance to find additional bones in this grave was nearly nothing, I think. It was a great day. I couldn't believe it.
So now the skeleton is nearly complete. But there's one big problem. The most important part of the skeleton remains missing. The skull. Well, here at least, our modern-day archaeologist, Hill Qatar, found an answer in the archives. In the 1920s, the skull had been taken from Turkey back to Germany. It was lost in the chaos of the Second World War. But before its disappearance, an archaeologist had recorded its dimensions. Cryptically, he'd revealed another clue as to the identity of the occupant of the tomb. The skull, long and with a low forehead, reminded him of others he'd seen in Egypt. By a stroke of luck, his precise notes, photos and measurements of the skull survived. Using the latest scientific technology, a world-renowned British facial reconstruction team believe they can use this evidence to rebuild the skull in virtual reality.
Well, this has been a challenge, but it's been quite interesting to take in these two-dimensional images and recreate a 3D model within the planes created by the images. And we can...
So I'm not going to go too much into that part, because what they conclude from the virtual reality reconstruction is that it is of a woman, a young woman, Princess Arsinoe, Cleopatra's sister. So we're going to go further into the video, which reveals even more shocking revelations. We already know now that they admit that her skull is that of typical ancient Egyptian, a woman, right? So taking this further, they're gonna, as I said, they're gonna make some more shocking revelations as to her background, her heritage. So let's take a look at this. And this program is really great because it admits that Cleopatra wasn't this romanticized character that we see in movies, modern day movies, that she was very, very sinister, cutthroat, and would do anything. And her and her sisters and the family were infighting to ascend to the throne, to positions of power. So let's go back to this video and we're going to see some more stuff here.
The forensic team are convinced they've proved beyond doubt that these are the bones of Princess Arsinoe. But rebuilding the skull has unlocked an incredible secret about her ancestry. Until recently, Cleopatra's dynasty was thought to be Greek, European, Caucasian. But some scholars now believe Cleopatra and her siblings had African blood. Could the answer be in this skull?
The distance from the forehead to the back of the skull is long in relation to the overall height of the cranium. And that's something that you see quite frequently in certain populations, one of which is ancient Egyptians. Another would be Black African groups will also show that characteristic.
Now, note, note what she says. The characteristics are evidence of Egyptians or Black Africans. Boom. Boom. Cleopatra's sister, Princess Arsinoe, has clear evidence of Egyptian or Black Africans. And going back to the article that I discussed earlier, where the author was trying best to steer you away from that idea that she could be of Black heritage. This is the type of propaganda you're getting from the academic circles. They're hiding the truth, they're lying, and Hollywood is working in tandem with them to put out this propaganda, to do the cover-ups and do the lies. So let's go back more into this program and just see a little bit more about what she says, okay?
This one certainly looks more white European, but it has got this long head shape. It could suggest a mixture of ancestry.
Our revelation backs up the controversial theory that the princess, and therefore her sister Cleopatra, also had African blood.
Boom. Boom. Atom bomb, boom. All of these years, all the information written in books, taught in the universities, done through Hollywood films, have portrayed Cleopatra as we see in back of me, lily white. And they have gone out of their way to write articles to cast white actresses and to overtly lie, to cover up the truth. This is consistently done. throughout history, where there is evidence of very advanced civilizations, Egypt, Kemet, Atlantis. They always attribute it to white European ancestry. And they cannot face the truth. And they cannot allow the truth to get out there through Hollywood, which has a global reach, because it would rock the foundations of the academic community and the population. It would take white males off their positions of power and prestige. It would take white women off their position of the standard of beauty in the world. So this is what we're involved with. Hollywood is continuing in its same tradition of whitewashing. Gal Gadot is a fabulous actress, but she's not right for the role of Cleopatra. And for them to continue lying, to continue to lie, when the evidence clearly points to the fact that Cleopatra had mixed ancestry, Macedonian and African blood, Egyptian. And you see what they tend to do. They play games where they separate Egyptian from African or black. And then they want to debate you on, well, the Egyptians were white. No, the Egyptians were black. Later on, through the mixture with Greek and Roman civilization, the racial identity changed. And even when they show the Greek and Roman civilization, which were great metropolitans or great civilizations of commerce, even when Hollywood shows them, they're always white, always white. When we know that, Egypt, Greek, and Roman civilizations were involved in trade, so there had to be other cultures, other civilizations that were infiltrating and influencing them. But all we get is these lily white representations. So I want you to understand that the reason why Hollywood is doing what it's doing, why it's not going to change, why they're professing to be about diversity when they're really not. It's a lie, because they have a clear agenda in what they're doing. And that agenda is to create a gender war, marginalize black men, vilify them, and vilify white men. So think about that. And lastly, what I will say on this is, really what's going to change the dynamic is that if we stop supporting these films. When these films come out, because Hollywood's not going to stop making them, we stop going to the box office, we stop supporting them. And if they don't make any money, then it's going to put Hollywood into bankruptcy every time they make these type of genre films. And they're going to get the message. And another question you'll have to ask, and I'm not going to give you the answer right now because this gets into a very controversial subject, is that of all the so-called minority filmmakers out there, why haven't they tackled this subject? Why haven't they made their own stories of Moses, Cleopatra, where we see the ancient Egyptians in their true light as Black African? Why haven't they done this? These accomplished Black filmmakers. Well, if you understand anything about distribution, maybe you know the answer. So I want to thank you for tuning into this. And let's keep up the good fight. Let's stop supporting these films. Don't go to the theater to see them. So we can send a message to Hollywood that we are tired of the whitewashing and the lies. This is Kasank Ma Keperu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. Ma'at is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until the next video, Amen Ra.